One photograph. That's all it took to destroy everything. He was the man millions adored. She was the woman who loved him before the fame. Everyone called them perfect. But that night, her phone buzzed with a single image. No caption, no explanation, just a picture that made her heart stop. She didn't scream, didn't confront him. She simply typed one message, pressed send, and walked out the door. What happened next changed both of their lives forever. It's a new year, and while others scroll past stories like this, you stayed. That means you care, you feel, you don't want to miss moments that remind us we're alive. So subscribe, join this family, and tell me where you're watching from. Your presence matters more than you think today. The weight of expectation had carved itself into Min-Jun Han's shoulders by the time he turned 33. Every photograph demanded perfection. Every interview required the careful balance of charm and distance. Every relationship had been curated, approved, and ultimately discarded when it no longer served the image his management had built. He had forgotten what it felt like to simply exist. Seoul's winter rain fell in sheets that Tuesday evening, and Min-Jun found himself stranded outside a small cafe in Itaewon. His manager had canceled. His driver was 40 minutes away. His umbrella had surrendered to the wind 3 blocks back. He stood under the narrow awning, expensive coat soaked, watching the water pool around his designer shoes. "You're blocking the door." The voice came from behind him, direct, unbothered. Min-Jun turned to find a woman holding a paper bag against her chest, rain droplets caught in her dark curls. Her accent carried warmth, Caribbean, he would later learn. Jamaican roots transplanted to London, then somehow blooming here in Seoul. "Sorry." He stepped aside. She didn't recognize him, or if she did, she didn't care. "You look lost," she said, not unkindly. "Just waiting." Alma Baker studied him for a moment, then shrugged. "There's waiting, and there's drowning. You're doing both." She pushed open the cafe door. "They have good coffee inside, and heating." She disappeared without looking back. Min-Jun stood in the rain for another full minute before following her in. Their first conversation was awkward, stilted. Min-Jun had forgotten how to speak without scripts. Alma had no patience for pretense. "You're doing that thing," she said, stirring honey into her tea. "What thing?" "Performing. Like you're waiting for someone to grade you." He felt exposed, defensive. "I'm not. It's okay." She smiled, and it reached her eyes. "Most people do it, just exhausting to watch." Min-Jun didn't know whether to be offended or relieved. He chose silence. Alma let the silence breathe. She didn't fill it with nervous chatter or probing questions. She simply existed beside him, comfortable in the absence of words. It was the most peaceful 20 minutes he'd experienced in years. They exchanged numbers before leaving. Min-Jun told himself it meant nothing. 3 weeks later, they had developed a rhythm. Late-night phone calls that stretched past midnight. Alma would talk about her work at the children's literacy nonprofit, her voice animated when describing a student's breakthrough. Min-Jun would listen, genuinely listen, offering questions instead of redirecting attention to himself. "Why teaching?" he asked one night. "Because someone taught me," she said simply. "Back home, I had a teacher who saw me when no one else did. Changed everything. Now I try to be that person for someone else." Min-Jun felt something crack in his chest, a small fissure in the armor. "I don't know if I've ever been that for anyone," he admitted. "Maybe you haven't met them yet." Shared meals became their sacred ritual. Alma cooked jerk chicken in her tiny apartment while Min-Jun sat on her counter, learning to dice vegetables properly. She laughed at his clumsy knife work without mockery. "You really never learned to cook?" "There was always someone to do it for me." "That's not living, Min-Jun. That's being handled." He set down the knife. "What's the difference?" Alma stopped stirring. She looked at him, really looked, with those eyes that seemed to see past every barrier he'd constructed. Living means making choices because they're yours. Being handled means existing inside someone else's plan. She turned back to the stove. You seem like someone who's been handled his whole life. Minjun didn't argue. The fears came out slowly, then all at once. Sitting on her living room floor at 2 in the morning, Minjun told her about the panic attacks before performances, the loneliness that followed him through crowded rooms, the constant terror that he was one mistake away from losing everything he'd never actually wanted. My parents sacrificed everything, he said, voice breaking. How do I tell them that the dream they gave up their lives for makes me want to disappear? Alma took his hand. She didn't offer solutions or platitudes. You don't have to tell them anything yet, she said. You just have to know it yourself first. She became his anchor, the first person who loved the man behind the image, the only person who made him feel like that man was worth loving. The proposal happened on a quiet Sunday. No cameras, no publicist approval, no choreographed moment designed for maximum impact. Just Minjun kneeling in Alma's cramped kitchen, holding a ring that cost less than his watch but meant infinitely more. I don't have the words right, he said. I practiced, but nothing sounds big enough. Alma laughed through tears. Then don't make it big. Make it true. You make me feel human. You make me feel safe. I want to spend my life trying to deserve the way you love me. He swallowed. Will you marry me? Yes. No hesitation. Yes. They held each other on that kitchen floor, surrounded by unwashed dishes and the smell of morning coffee, and for one perfect moment, the world outside didn't exist. Everyone thought their love was perfect. That's why no one saw the damage coming. Later that evening, while Minjun showered, Alma sat on the bed, admiring the ring on her finger. Her phone vibrated on the nightstand. She glanced at the screen. Her smile faltered. The shower water ran for 7 minutes. Alma counted each one. Her phone sat in her palm, screen still illuminated, displaying the image that had just shattered her universe into fragments she couldn't yet comprehend. Layla hadn't included text. She didn't need to. The photograph spoke its own language. Minjun in a restaurant booth, leaning close to a woman Alma had never seen, their foreheads nearly touching, his hand covering hers on the table, the intimacy unmistakable. Alma's hands went still, completely, terrifyingly still. Her chest tightened like someone had wrapped wire around her ribs and started pulling. She couldn't breathe, couldn't blink, couldn't look away from the evidence glowing against her palm. The shower stopped. Alma locked her phone, slipped it beneath the pillow, forced her face into something resembling calm. Minjun emerged in sweatpants, toweling his hair, smiling at her with those eyes that had promised forever just hours ago. You okay? He asked. You look pale. Just tired. Her voice didn't shake. She was proud of that. Long day? He kissed her forehead and climbed into bed beside her. Alma lay awake until dawn, listening to him breathe, wondering how the same sound that once brought comfort now felt like Betrayal's soundtrack. The woman's name was Soo Min Park. Alma discovered this through careful, quiet investigation. No dramatic confrontations, no tearful accusations. Just methodical searching through the digital breadcrumbs Minjun carelessly left behind. Soo Min was 29. A former backup dancer turned choreographer, polished in that specifically Korean way, perfect skin, careful fashion, movements that seemed rehearsed even in candid photos. She had worked with Minjun's company for 3 years, 3 years of proximity, 3 years of late rehearsals and shared dressing rooms and inside jokes Alma would never understand. Alma scrolled through Soo Min's social media with surgical precision, looking for evidence, finding plenty. A tagged photo from a company dinner. Soo Min seated beside Minjun, her hand on his arm. A story highlight showing them laughing backstage, faces too close for colleagues. Comments filled with inside references and playful emojis that carried weight Alma couldn't measure. Familiar. Too familiar. The kind of familiar that doesn't develop without intention. Denial came first, wearing Hope's clothing. Maybe the restaurant photo was angled deceptively. Maybe Layla had misunderstood what she witnessed. Maybe there was context that would transform betrayal into innocence. Alma constructed explanations like building blocks, business meeting, old friend, professional obligation that required physical closeness for reasons she couldn't quite articulate. But the explanations kept collapsing. Fear followed denial. Not fear of being wrong, fear of being right. Fear that confrontation would confirm what her heart already suspected. Fear that asking the question would force an answer she couldn't survive. So Alma chose silence. Chose watching. Chose gathering evidence like a prosecutor building a case she prayed would fall apart. The patterns emerged slowly, then all at once. Missed calls that Minjun dismissed as nothing important. Late nights explained with vague references to extra rehearsals. His phone angled away when messages arrived, the subtle flinch when she entered rooms unexpectedly. "Who was that?" Alma asked one evening, nodding toward his buzzing phone. "Manager." He didn't check the screen. Always something. The lie slid out so smoothly, so practiced. Alma wondered how many times he'd deployed it before. She started keeping mental notes, cataloging inconsistencies, comparing his stated locations against tagged photos and check-ins that placed him elsewhere. The evidence accumulated like snow, each flake insignificant alone. Together, they buried everything. Friday evening, Minjun mentioned dinner with colleagues, industry networking, boring but necessary. "Don't wait up," he said, kissing her cheek. Alma smiled, nodded, watched him leave. Then she followed. The restaurant was upscale, private booths, dim lighting designed for intimacy rather than industry discussions. Alma positioned herself across the street, partially hidden by a delivery truck, feeling ridiculous and desperate and completely unable to stop. Minjun arrived first, checked his reflection in the window, adjusted his hair with the careful attention he usually reserved for public appearances. Sumin arrived 12 minutes later. Alma watched them embrace. Watched Minjun pull out her chair with the same gentleness he'd shown Alma on their first real date. Watched them lean toward each other across the table, creating their own private universe. Then she saw it. Minjun laughing, head thrown back, shoulders shaking, joy radiating from every feature. The kind of laugh Alma hadn't witnessed in months, the kind she'd convinced herself he'd simply forgotten how to produce. He hadn't forgotten. He'd just stopped sharing it with her. Alma raised her phone. Her hands trembled, but she steadied them through sheer will. She captured the moment. The proof. The final nail in a coffin she'd been building for weeks. The photograph showed everything. His happiness, her presence, their connection. Alma stared at the image for a long moment. Then she opened their message thread and typed with fingers that felt disconnected from her body. "Thank you for deceiving me." She attached the photo. She pressed send. She didn't wait for the read receipt, didn't watch for his reaction through the restaurant window, didn't give him the chance to construct another beautiful lie. Alma simply turned and walked away. The city blurred around her, lights smeared into streams of color, sounds compressed into a dull roar that couldn't penetrate the numbness spreading through her chest. She walked without destination, without awareness of traffic patterns or crosswalk signals or the fundamental rules that kept pedestrians alive in busy cities. The engagement ring felt like a shackle now. She twisted it absently, wondering how something so small could represent such an enormous lie. Her phone exploded with notifications, Minjun calling, texting, calling again. She silenced it without looking. The intersection ahead glowed green for vehicles, red for pedestrians. Alma didn't notice. She stepped into the road. The headlights came first, twin beams cutting through the evening haze, growing larger with impossible speed. Then the horn, a sound that would echo through Minjun's nightmares for years to come. Then silence. The kind of silence that exists between heartbeats, between breaths, between the moment before impact and the moment after, when the universe pauses to acknowledge that everything has fundamentally changed. Alma felt herself suspended in that silence, weightless, disconnected from the body that had carried her pain through city streets just seconds before. She didn't feel the collision, she only felt the falling. And then, darkness, complete, absolute, merciful. The hospital corridor smelled of antiseptic and grief. Minjun had driven there in a blur, Alma's message still burning on his phone screen. He'd tried calling 17 times. Each attempt went straight to voicemail, her recorded greeting mocking him with its warmth. The emergency room receptionist regarded him with professional detachment. Alma Baker. She was brought in tonight. Car accident. His voice cracked on the last word. The receptionist typed without urgency. Minjun wanted to reach across the counter and shake her. Didn't she understand? The woman he loved was somewhere behind these walls, and every second of bureaucratic delay felt like dying. Are you family? I'm her fiancé. The receptionist's expression flickered, something that looked almost like pity. She's in the ICU, but I'm afraid only immediate family is permitted at this time. I am her family. Minjun's hands gripped the counter edge. We're getting married. I'm sorry, sir. Hospital policy. You'll need to wait for authorization from her emergency contacts. Minjun opened his mouth to argue, to plead, to offer whatever money or influence might bend these impossible rules. A voice cut through his desperation. You. He turned to find a woman approaching with murder in her eyes. Layla. He recognized her from Alma's photos, her best friend since university, the one who had sent the photograph that started everything. You have the audacity to show your face here. Layla, please. Don't. She stopped 3 feet away, trembling with barely contained rage. Don't say her name. Don't pretend you care. Don't stand there looking broken when you're the one who broke her. I didn't know she would. She walked into traffic, Minjun. Layla's voice shattered. She walked into traffic because of what you did. Because of what she saw. Because you couldn't keep your promises for 5 minutes. The words landed like physical blows. Minjun staggered backward. Is she... coma? Layla wiped her eyes angrily. Doctors don't know when she'll wake up. If she'll wake up. She stepped closer, finger pointed at his chest. You did this. Your lies, your selfishness, your complete inability to appreciate what you had. I need to see her. Absolutely not. Layla positioned herself between Minjun and the ICU doors. You don't get to sit by her bedside and play the devoted partner, not after everything. Please. The word came out broken, desperate. I love her. You have a strange way of showing it. Layla's laugh was bitter. Go home, Minjun. Go back to your other woman. Alma doesn't need you anymore. Security appeared before Minjun could respond. Gentle hands guided him toward the exit. Professional voices explained policies he couldn't process. The automatic doors closed behind him. He stood in the parking lot for 20 minutes, unable to remember where he'd left his car. The apartment felt like a mausoleum. Minjun sat in darkness, surrounded by evidence of the life he'd destroyed. Alma's books on the shelf, her sweater draped over the chair, the ring box still sitting on the kitchen counter where she'd left it, too happy to put it away properly. Sumin had called 6 times. He hadn't answered. She arrived at 11, using the code he'd stupidly shared months ago. Her heels clicked against the hardwood as she searched the dark rooms. Minjun? What happened? You just disappeared from dinner. People are talking." He didn't respond. Couldn't find words that wouldn't emerge as screaming. Su-min found him in the bedroom. She sat beside him, hand on his thigh, voice dripping with practiced concern. "Whatever it is, we can fix it. Together." His phone rang. Su-min glanced at the screen before he could grab it. "Don't answer that. It's just going to upset you more." She stepped into the hallway to take her own call. Min-jun heard her voice through the crack in the door. Hushed, but not hushed enough. "No, it's fine. He's completely broken right now. This actually works in our favor." Min-jun's blood turned to ice. "The scandal will blow over. Once she's out of the picture, I can position myself properly. His management already likes me. This whole situation makes him more dependent, more controllable." A pause, then laughter, cold, calculating. "Love? Please. He's a stepping stone. A very attractive, very famous stepping stone. By this time next year, I'll have my own brand deals. He's too naive to see it coming." The words rearranged everything Min-jun thought he understood. Su-min hadn't wanted him. She'd wanted his platform, his connections, his influence. He had thrown away Alma, genuine, honest, loving Alma, for someone who saw him as nothing more than leverage. Su-min returned, smile firmly in place. "Now, let's figure out how to handle this situation." "Get out." "What?" "We're done." Min-jun's voice carried a deadness that surprised even him. "Leave your key. Don't contact me again." "You can't be serious." "I've never been more serious about anything." He finally looked at her. "I see you now. I see exactly what you are." Su-min's mask slipped, revealing the calculation beneath. She left without another word. The door clicked shut. Min-jun collapsed. 3 days passed in a haze of guilt and regret. He didn't eat, didn't sleep, didn't answer calls from management demanding explanations. He simply existed in the wreckage of his choices, replaying every moment he could have done differently. On the 4th day, his phone rang. Layla's number. "She's stable." Her voice was exhausted, hollow. "The doctors say you can visit. 15 minutes. Don't make me regret this." Min-jun drove to the hospital in silence. He walked through the corridors he'd been banned from days ago. He stopped outside room 412. Through the window, he saw her, pale, still, surrounded by machines keeping her alive. He pushed open the door. The machines spoke their own language. Steady beeps marking time, soft hisses of oxygen. The quiet hum of monitors tracking vital signs that meant everything and nothing simultaneously. Alma looked smaller than Min-jun remembered. Fragile in ways that had nothing to do with her physical frame. The woman who had commanded rooms with her presence, who had laughed without reservation, who had loved without conditions. She lay motionless beneath thin hospital sheets, reduced to data points on glowing screens. Bruises painted her left side in watercolors of purple and yellow. A bandage wrapped her forehead where she'd struck the pavement. Her curls, usually wild and magnificent, lay flat against the pillow. But she was breathing. That mattered more than anything else. Min-jun pulled the plastic chair closer to her bedside. The legs scraped against linoleum, breaking the sterile silence. He sat down heavily, suddenly aware of his own exhaustion. 4 days without proper sleep. 4 days of confronting the monster he'd become. He reached for her hand, stopped himself. He hadn't earned the right to touch her anymore. "I don't know if you can hear me," he began, voice barely above a whisper. "The doctors say coma patients sometimes remember things, conversations, presences. I hope you can't hear this, honestly, because what I'm about to say, you deserve to never hear it." The monitor beeped steadily. Alma remained still. Min-jun pressed his palms against his thighs, grounding himself for the confession he'd been rehearsing for days. "I was afraid. The words hung in the antiseptic air. That's not an excuse. Nothing I say will be an excuse. But you deserve the truth, even if it makes me look worse than you already think I am. He stared at his hands, the same hands that had held hers during late-night conversations. The same hands that had slipped a ring onto her finger with promises he'd already been breaking. When I met you, I didn't know how to be loved. Not really. I knew how to be admired, how to be wanted for what I represented. But you loved the version of me that existed when the cameras weren't watching, the scared version, the uncertain version. His voice cracked. He pushed forward anyway. That terrified me more than anything, because if you loved the real me, that meant the real me had to be enough. And I've never believed I was enough. Not for my parents, not for my fans, not for anyone. The confession flowed now, a dam finally breaking. Su-min didn't love me. I know that now. But she made me feel powerful, wanted in that superficial way I'd grown addicted to. She treated me like a prize, and some broken part of me needed that validation more than I needed your honesty. Minjun's hands began trembling. My ego, my weakness, my complete inability to trust that someone could love me without agenda. I risked everything we built because I was too scared to believe it was real. He stood abruptly, walked to the window. The city sprawled below, indifferent to the devastation contained in this small room. I watched you step into that road, his forehead pressed against cold glass. In my mind, I mean. Layla described it. I've replayed it thousands of times. You walking away from me, walking toward traffic, not seeing the car because you couldn't see anything through the pain I caused. Tears fell freely now. He didn't wipe them away. I did that. My choices, my betrayal. You almost died because I couldn't be honest. Because I couldn't just talk to you when things felt overwhelming. He turned back to face her motionless form. You asked me once what the difference was between living and being handled. I finally understand. I've been handled my whole life. By managers, by expectations, by my own fear. You were the first person who made me want to actually live. Minjun returned to the chair, sat down slowly, studied her face for any sign of awareness. I love you. That's not a request for forgiveness. It's just truth. The first honest thing I've said in months. I love you, and I destroyed you, and I will carry that knowledge for the rest of my existence. He exhaled shakily. I'm not asking you to forgive me. I'm not asking for another chance. I'm just telling you the truth because you deserved it from the beginning, and I was too much of a coward to offer it. Minjun stood to leave. He had said everything, emptied himself completely. The confession hadn't absolved his guilt. Nothing ever would. But at least the words existed now. At least the truth had finally been spoken aloud. He was halfway to the door when he heard it. A sound, small, almost imperceptible. The rustle of sheets. Minjun froze, turned slowly, afraid hope was playing cruel tricks. Alma's fingers moved against the mattress, twitching, searching. Her eyelids fluttered. Once, twice, then opened. Those eyes, the same eyes that had seen through every mask he'd ever worn, focused slowly on the ceiling, then shifted toward him. I heard everything. Her voice emerged scratched and weak, barely audible above the machine chorus, but unmistakably present, unmistakably alive. Minjun's legs failed him. He collapsed beside her bed, knees hitting cold linoleum, sobs erupting from somewhere deeper than he knew existed. Alma. God. Alma. Her hand moved slowly, found his hair, rested there. I heard all of it, Minjun. The silence that followed wasn't uncomfortable. It was necessary. When Alma spoke again, her voice carried no anger, no accusation, just exhaustion and something else, something that might have been peace. I forgive you. No dramatic declaration, no tearful reconciliation. Just 3 words, offered quietly, meaning everything. Minjun looked up at her through blurred vision. Why? Because carrying hatred takes energy I don't have anymore. Her thumb traced small circles against his scalp. Because forgiveness isn't about deserving. It's about releasing. I don't deserve... No, you don't. Her honesty cut cleanly. But I'm not forgiving you for your sake. I'm forgiving you for mine. They stayed that way for a long time. Not reconciled, not healed. Just present in the aftermath of everything that had shattered between them. Love wasn't fixed by confession. Trust wasn't rebuilt by tears. But truth had finally arrived, carrying its own strange mercy. Alma's eyes drifted closed again, but her hand remained in Minjun's hair. A gesture that meant neither absolution nor rejection, simply acknowledgement that they had both survived something that could have destroyed them entirely. The monitors continued their steady rhythm. Outside, the city moved forward without them. And in that small room, 2 broken people began the long, uncertain process of figuring out what came next. Sometimes love doesn't end with forever. It ends with honesty. And sometimes, that hurts even more.